Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to return to Slovenia after quite a long absence in fact, and it's really cool to return to this brewery because the last Slovenian beer I did was got such a good reception from Slovenian people. They were telling me, oh thank you for reviewing our beer, you're very good at pronouncing Slovenian. Had no idea I was good at that, but they really enjoyed the video, so it's quite cool to return to Slovenia and do another beer review. So we're going to go to the same brewery this time, which is Pivovarna Laško, and we're having a taste of their Zlatorog tonight, which is a Pilsner style beer brewed with all Slovenian hops and all Slovenian malts. And a huge thank you in this video to Ziga Novak, who actually sent me this beer up from Ljubljana in Slovenia. He actually sent me a can of Union as well, and the idea behind this was, if you've read the comment section of the Lasko video I did before, there's a huge competitiveness for some reason between Lasko drinkers and Union drinkers in Slovenia. Really no idea why, of course, but Ziga was determined that I should try a Lasko beer and I should try my first Union beer. So a big thank you to Ziga once again for supporting the channel and sending me up these beers, and I hope you enjoy these reviews. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual websites are in the description below. The brewery website, the link to my other Lasko reviews, there will hopefully be more added in the near future, and there's all the usual social media, Facebook, Twitter and Untappd, so please follow me on there. Your support would be much appreciated, and I do apologise in advance for any bad Slovenian pronunciations, but as I said, I've been told that I'm actually quite good at it, so we'll see how we get on then. So, the brewery itself, Lasko is actually the leading beverage producer in Slovenia, and the brewery of course is named after the town in which it's actually located, and this town is a spa town. It's located on the Savinja River between the cities of Ljubljana, the capital city of course, and Maribor, the second city, which is in the northeast of the country, and it's actually quite close to the town of Celje, but the town apparently has been inhabited since around 800 BC, and it was already a very important spa town during Roman times. But the history of Lasko itself goes back to the year 1825 when mead and gingerbread maker Franz Geyer set up a brewery in the former Valvasor Hospital, which still stands to this day but is now known as the Savinja Hotel. And it's thought that Franz was brewing Stein beer in the early stages, but it's not known if he actually knew how to brew the more demanding Bavarian beer styles. But the brewery became famous in 1838 when it was bought by Heinrich August Ulich, who actually offered beer to foreign guests in the Rimske Toplice thermal spas, which he actually owned, and he also exported the beer to Trieste in Italy, Alexandria in Egypt and Calcutta in India. But the next owner of the brewery was Anton Larish, and he constructed a new brewery in the foothills of Christoph and Śmiel, and this was the largest brewery at the time in the Spodnje Stajersko province of Slovenia, and he supervised the brewing of the beer and also increased the brewery's capacity during his tenure as well. But after declaring bankruptcy in 1889, the brewery was purchased by Simon Kukic, who was from Zalic in Slovenia, and he was well known for being very experimental and sort of entrepreneurial in the way that he ran the business. And he actually started experimenting with something called thermal beers, and he produced a light and dark version of these thermal beers, and also a Letsak, which is a style of beer of Czech origin. But Kukic was actually quite well known for being anti-Germanic, so he only employed Slavic brewers in his brewery, and he began to export the beers to Egypt, India and Budapest, where the Bavarian and sort of Viennese style beers were dominating. But by 1900 the brewery was producing 35,000 hectolitres of beer per year, and he was actually awarded a medal from the French government for the quality of the beer, and they were also producing a porter beer to compete with Union Brewery's Bock beer, and apparently this one was 18% alcohol, so it was a bit of a beast. But by 1924 Union Brewery secretly brought up the majority of the Lasko shares using the German assets, and 3 years later the brewery closed despite performing well, and this ended the Kukic era. And Union Brewery was sold its own beer in the Croatian market using the Lasko name, which was a bit of a kind of kick in the teeth if you like. But the closing of the brewery in Lasko affected many residents of the town, and so the innkeepers decided to construct a catering shareholding company, and Pivovarna Laško eventually opened in 1938 after many complications. Of course, this is the modern incarnation of the brewery. But the German occupiers in World War II actually allowed the brewery to continue operating due to the quality of the beer. However, they took over the management of the brewery, and in 1941 they bottled and exported the beer over the next 4 years. But there were mixed feelings in the brewery at this time, because the business had never been better, but the sovereignty of the brewery had really been lost to the Germans. The Allies accidentally damaged the brewery when they were trying to bomb the railway bridge in Lasko, and it was demolished and rebuilt by the locals. But at this point the brewery was finally back in Slovenian hands. But the brewery went through major problems due to the economic situation after the war, and was selling only 15,000 hectolitres of beer up until 1955, and it was almost liquidated actually as a result of this in 1956. But following the economic situation picking up, the brewery underwent some major renovations. This was the building of a new electrical substation, a new malt house, a brew cellar, and also a totally new brewing facility. But they also had to build a new water reservoir in Jepihovic in 1969 due to ever-increasing demand for their beer. And new bottling lines were brought in from Germany and Italy, and this also resulted in a massive increase in the brewery capacity. And in the 1970s, the brewery enjoyed a period of sustained growth from the heavy investment of the 1960s, and they also acquired a new filling facility near the Savinja River and also built a new office building too. So in the 1980s, the demand for Lasko beer in the joint market of Yugoslavia was high, and the brewery moved to a new building in 1982 with modern filling lines, boiling houses, brewing facilities, all while implementing the full capacity of their malt house. And impressive sales at the end of the 80s were dealt a major blow with the dissolution of Yugoslavia, and this meant that the brewery lost the markets of the former Republic of course, Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, all of these countries. But the large infrastructure of the brewery guaranteed its continued existence, and despite the change in the political government, the brewer managed to replicate its impressive 1 million hectolitres of sale in 1990 and 1994. This was actually very cool. So they only went through a period of 4 years of downturn, but during the course of the 1990s, the company also invested in the local community by assisting with the renovation of the Tabor Castle in Lasko, the Hotel Savinja, which of course was the original site of the brewery, and the Lasko Cultural Centre, just to name a few of these. They were heavily involved in the redevelopment of the community. But in more recent years, the brewery entered business with Vital, Pivovarna Union, and also the Croatian beer Jadranska Pivovara, and this is in Split, of course, which has all helped the group compete with major European brewers such as Anheuser-Busch and all of these sort of things. So as you can see, it's a very prominent brewery in Slovenian history. So I hope you enjoyed that history. It was a little bit long, but just to list the other beers you can get from Lasko before we open this one up, you get the Malt Elixir, which is a strong dark beer. There's the dark beer, the light, Club Expert, which was the one I reviewed for you before, and they have this guy here, which is the Zlatorog, the all Slovenian hops and all Slovenian malts. They also produce the Bandidos beers, which are flavoured with tequila and things like that, and export pills, and also Odat spring water as well. So it's quite a big operation, as you might have guessed from that history. But without further ado, let's actually get on to the tasting of this beer. So this one, as I mentioned to you at the start, is a 4.9% Pils beer. You can see on the can here, I'll just check that you're seeing this, it has the Lasko ram on this one. I'm not sure if you call it a ram or a goat, but I would say it's maybe a ram, but definitely could be a goat. I really don't know animals that well, but as I say, it comes in at 4.9%. Zlatorog, you can see the nice kind of shields of the brewery just down here, but quite nicely presented, quite a nice can, green top on this one. So without further ado, we'll get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting. Once again, a huge thank you to Ziga for sending me this beer. Very cool to return to Slovenia for this one and review it for you. It's quite crazy actually, my channel just hit 100,000 views just before I actually filmed this review, and 2,000 of those, about 2,500, actually come from Slovenia, and most of the ones from Slovenia are on that one video, of course. So really, really cool actually to see the response that I get from Slovenia for this video. So as you can see, this beer is poured a nice bright golden colour. There's a finger of a frothy white head in there. It's probably fair to describe this beer as being a pale golden straw, very clear like I said, but there's a lot of carbonation visible in this one, and it looks really quite nice. So let's give it a smell and see how we get on here. So without sugaring it up, it smells like your kind of typical mass-produced lager beer. There's some kind of grassy hops in there, a little bit of floral character, maybe a little bit of earthiness too, but you've got that typical kind of grassy character. Underneath you can smell the sweetness of the malt base. It's a little bit bready, a kind of sweet, corny malt if you like, a little bit of kind of cereal or biscuity syrup in there. And just a little bit of bready character too. It smells like a lager beer, but this one, from what Ziga told me, is actually one of the better Lasko beers. And I did enjoy the other one, and this is one of the things, when you get a macro brewery, if you like, you expect a kind of not as flavourful beer, but some of them can be of very good quality. The Germans, of course, produce very high quality macro beer, but the Lasko one I had before, I was quite impressed with. But if you sugar this beer up, you start to get more of the malt. The malt actually smells a bit more sweet and a bit richer. It smells more like caramel than biscuit actually, which is quite interesting. So we'll give this guy a try and see how we get on. So this is the Zlatorog beer from Lasko Pivovarna in Laško in Slovenia. Skål! Now that's actually pretty good for a lager beer. and especially a mass-produced lager, it's very smooth and really quite drinkable. It's actually got a good bit of malty flavour to it, this one. This is a bit more of a malt-forward beer, I think. As I told you as well, this beer is brewed with all Slovenian malts and all Slovenian hops, as far as I'm aware. So we actually had Brewdog in Scotland. They actually like to use Slovenian hops. I believe it's the Dana hop that comes from Slovenia. Very beautiful country, incidentally. Lots of nice mountains. My flatmate in first year of university was from Slovenia. Very nice guy, and his country looks absolutely beautiful. I need to go and visit it. As I always say, sugar the beer around your mouth a little bit and just let your whole palate adjust to it. So the middle of your palate is just blanketed with a nice kind of bready malt flavour. On top of that, you get some of these biscuity, it's kind of biscuity, syrupy flavour that you get on top of that. There is a little bit of cereal dryness, you can feel that going down the middle of the tongue, but it's biscuity, cereally. There's maybe a little bit of richer caramel in there, but you get that definite kind of corny malt that you get from these mass-produced lager beers. But yeah, I mean, for a mass-produced lager, you can tell that this is actually a very nice and quite drinkable beer. I do enjoy one of these kind of lager beers every so often, and the Slovenian ones do seem to a very good place to go. But around the hoppy edge, the hoppy part of your palate, of course, around the edges of the tongue there is quite a smooth, grassy character. As you come round to the front of the tongue, it does become a bit more floral and aromatic, a little bit drier, of course. But yeah, definitely floral and aromatic around the front curve of the tongue. It's very, very nicely done, actually. So you definitely want to give this guy a try if you enjoy lager beers. This one is a good one to go for, actually. Of course, nowhere near as in-depth in flavour as some of the craft beers, but I have to admit, I enjoy a good lager beer every so often. It's actually a very nice and very refreshing thing. This is definitely a sort of summer's day beer. But around, and maybe in the back corners of the palate too, you get a little bit of earthy character. It's a sort of noble hop character you get from this one. The Slovenian hops, from what I remember, do come across as quite noble, and it's very well done, this. I mean, in terms of a kind of macro-produced lager beer, it does its job. It's very nice, it's very smooth, it's got a good bit of malty sweetness there, and there's a bit of hoppy bitterness in the end. There's not much more you can want from a kind of macro lager beer, if you like. So it's another quite high quality macro beer from Lasko brewery. It's nicely done. I wouldn't hesitate to, if I was in Slovenia and it was really hot and I wanted something nice and refreshing, this is what you would go for. There's a little bit of citrus actually in the flavour too, just behind the front curve of the tongue. That starts to come out a little bit more just as your palate adjusts to this beer. But as I say, overall, in terms of a lager beer, it's actually pretty nice, and it's cool to have one that is kind of properly Slovenian as well. So if I go to Slovenia, I will make sure to drink the Zlatorog rather than the other versions of Laško. But in terms of the mouthfeel, this one, I would say definitely light-bodied. Does have a good bit of carbonation to it. The carbonation does come in with a bit of a prickle, but it smooths the beer out. But it does have it's probably moderately carbonated, I guess is a good way to describe it. There's a little bit of an oily character to this one, but overall it's more of a wet beer. I think this one's a bit more forward on the malt than it is on the hoppy character. There is a bit of hoppy dryness around the front edge of the tongue, but otherwise it's really quite smooth. But it's very nicely done for a lager beer. And yeah, like I say, this is a summer's day beer. It's one that you would want to drink when it's very, very hot. And of course in Slovenia they do get pretty damn hot summers, and they've got some nice beaches too, so you should go and check out the country. And they've got nice mountains as well. Slovenia, of course, is very well known for its mountains. But yeah, another really quite nice beer from Pivovarna Laško. So hopefully I can review one of their dark beers actually. That would be quite interesting to try. So we'll see how we get on with that. But as always, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been really cool to return to Slovenia once again. Tomorrow you'll be seeing the review from Union Beer that Ziga also sent me, so I hope you guys enjoy that one too. Thank you for all your support in Slovenia in the last video. I hope it's the same in this one, because it's always interesting to hear from you guys. To the rest of you as well, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Your support is much appreciated, but until the next beer review, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Go and check out the social media things and tune in for the review of Union tomorrow. And in the meantime, do go and try some Laško beer, one of the better macro beers I've come across actually. So go and check out Slovenia and go and check out Pivovarna Laško. Slange just now, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers, and thank you once again to Ziga.